Welcome to the Alderley Park Discovery Podcast, produced in partnership with the online pharmaceutical news and analysis destination Pharma Forum. The podcast presents perspectives on UK and global bioscience innovation trends, with input from experts located within Alderley Park in the northwest of England. The Life Science Campus offers exceptional bioscience facilities for R&D focused life science companies at every stage of their life cycle, from startup to global corporate. I'm Dominic Tyre, Creative and Editorial Director at Pharma Forum. In this episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about access to skills in the life sciences sector. My three guests are Dean Edney, Head of Global R&D at Sci Life Sciences, Dr. Kath Mackay, Managing Director at Alderley Park, and Steve Joins, Managing Director of Joins & Hunt. First up on this episode of the podcast is Dean Edney. Dean, welcome to the podcast, and I wonder if we could start by asking you to give the listeners a brief introduction to Sci Life Sciences.
Yeah, hi Dominic, sure, no problem. So Sci Life Sciences is, I guess, what we term a pure play contract research, development and manufacturing organisation. So we provide services in the discovery space, development space, and also manufacturing to our clients. Sci is a company originated and is headquartered in India, in Hyderabad. And the company's been successfully supplying small molecule CRDMO services successfully over the last 20 years. So pretty well established, very well established in India. And looking to expand globally. So we currently employ greater than 2,000 people in our organisation worldwide, but the vast majority of those are actually based in India. And
looking at the expansion story, so as you say, you're based in Hyderabad, but expanding globally. Could you tell us a bit about Sci Life Sciences' general expansion story and give us a bit of an update on what the company is doing in the UK?
Yeah, sure. So given the history I've just described, and in terms of being a successful organisation based in India for the last 20 years, the Sci organisation has a fairly broad customer base. Sort of consists of big pharma. We work currently with 7 out of the 10 top big pharma. We work with small and medium-sized biotechs in Europe and the US. As I say, historically, Sci has been very much Indian-based, but there's a desire to transform from being viewed as an Indian-based CDMO into a global organisation. And that transformation's been underpinned by some really ambitious growth plans and some significant investment over the last 12 to 18 months. So within the last year or so, we've opened new sites in Boston, Massachusetts in the US. The site there is a discovery biology focus, so works within our discovery team and is well placed in that sort of biotech network on the East Coast. We've also opened process R&D, so development-focused facility in Alderley Park in the UK, as well as continuing to expand our R&D and manufacturing capability and capacity in India. So, for example, our manufacturing capacity in India, greater than 70% of that capacity is less than 3 years old. Focusing, as you say, Dominic, on the UK expansion. So our first UK employees joined the organisation in November last year. So 12 months working in the UK. Those first employees was a very small group with a remit to build a centre of excellence in process research and development in Alderley Park. The team and facility has now been up and running since July, and the team are really currently fully employed delivering projects for both existing Sci customers and also we've already attracted in some new customers. So the response we've seen to this new facility and the new team in the UK has been overwhelmingly positive, probably more positive than we would have anticipated when we embarked on this venture. And as a consequence, we're also considering more UK expansion from this point out.
That sounds very exciting times for the company. And looking at the Alderley Park base, is that's the company's first European location, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. first European location, second location outside of India.
So when it came to setting up the first European base for Sci Life Sciences, what sort of skills were you looking out for?
Yeah, so maybe I should just provide a little bit more background in terms of what we're doing in the UK. So our Process R&D Centre of Excellence focus on small molecule drug substance process research and development. So we're looking at supporting clients in their delivery of early clinical trial material. But from a majority perspective, we're looking at developing processes that can be used to scale up chemistry to deliver material and can also be transferred ultimately into manufacturing. So the team in Alderley works really closely with our colleagues in India, but in terms of the skills we need for that process R&D Centre of Excellence, it's very much small molecule drug substance focused. So key skills were synthetic chemists with process development experience, ideally, analytical chemists, particle scientists, and process engineers. So very, very lab focused, very, very scientific focused. And over and above that core scientific group, we're also looking for a small group of leaders with a combination of deep technical expertise in their various areas, but also with experience in leadership, people leadership, and project leadership.
And when it came to drawing up the shortlist for what would become your first European base, were there other locations, maybe other countries that were on the shortlist, or did you always have in mind the UK and perhaps Alderley Park?
Yeah, I think strategically, from a side perspective, we were thinking about an expansion to take some locations closer to our main customer base. So the bulk of our customers are based in Europe or the US currently. So it was about looking for locations which would bridge the gap between India and where our customers sit. As I mentioned earlier, the decision to site the biology hub in the US was already taken. So from the process R&D development facility, it was a choice between Europe and the UK. We very quickly settled on the UK as an area of focus because there are so many opportunities in terms of the burgeoning bioscience centres and science parks that are available in the UK. So there were many, many choices for us in the UK to look at. And we did look at a broad number across the UK before we settled on Alderley Park as the site of choice.
And then given that competition clearly that existed within the UK, what made you choose Alderley Park?
Yeah, there were probably a number of factors. We talked earlier about the sort of skills we were looking for, and access to high quality talent was something that was high on our list from a location perspective. In fact, it was one of the key drivers for looking at expanding into the UK to be able to access the UK science talent sector. So the networks were really important to us in terms of being able to pull in the right type of people into the team. We were also looking at a site that would provide additional support in terms of partners, technical support partners that could plug the gaps where our current skill sets would require to be supplemented, but that we weren't able to deliver ourselves. And when we came to Alderley, there were a number of things that really fitted the bill perfectly in terms of that access to technical support partners, collaborators, and also potential future customers. The site was clearly already a very thriving scientific community, which was very attractive. Good proximity and access to the skills, whether that be in the local academic institutions in and around the site, or access to similar organizations and or customer organizations, which again, geographically were in the right region for us. The site's obviously very accessible by road, rail and air, so that was good. I think the thing that really tipped the balance, though, from our perspective, is that the infrastructure and the support services that were offered by the site were perfect for our needs. And in the initial conversations, it was pretty clear to us that the site leadership understood what our needs would be. Clearly, their previous experience in the sector and from the site's heritage use was a really good fit for the work that we do, and we felt our needs would be very well catered for in terms of situating ourselves in Alderley Park for lots and lots of different reasons.
And Dean, what's been your experience of taking a small established team and growing it at Alderley Park? And what sort of talent were you looking to recruit into the team?
Yeah, actually, it's been a really, really positive experience, Dominic. You know, where we are as of today, I'm really happy with the strength of the team at Alderley and the diversity that we've managed to achieve in terms of the experience and skill sets for the team. But just to answer your question, we started with a small nucleus of individuals that were recruited directly from SCI. So 4 of us started late last year with that remit of building the team. The team is now currently 25, a mixture of synthetic chemists, analytical chemists, and process engineers. And we found that recruitment process went really positively. We actually started at the top, thought about what leadership we needed. We went out and recruited that leadership first. And I would say when I look at the leadership that we recruited into that process, 2 key leaders were brought in to supplement the initial team we started with. And one came from the local area, working actually for a competitor CDMO pretty locally. So it's great to have somebody join us that had that experience. And the other came from quite some distance away, but in the pharma industry. So our key leadership team was a mixture of local and national recruitment. From there, we went down into a senior chemist role that we were looking at. The majority of those senior chemists were people that were already in the industry, and the vast majority of them, not all, but the vast majority of them were recruited locally from businesses around the area, and 1 or 2 from organisations already on Alderley Park. It was important to us, though, to balance out our team and make sure, looking forward, that we were planning for the future. So as well as recruiting those experienced scientists, both chemists and analytical chemists, just recently we've completed recruitment of what I would call fresh PhDs and postdocs straight out of academia. And those guys are really important to us because it's important to balance experience in the industry with cutting edge science that we get from those recruits that come straight out of academia. And it's important to us to get that balance right in the team as we start and maintain that balance as we move forward. So yeah, we just brought on board 3 or 4 new PhDs and postdocs in the chemistry space, which again were predominantly recruited from universities in the region. Overall, yeah, very successful, very happy with the balance of the team at this point, and the team is well positioned to support our delivery and also growth moving forward.
And so finally, Dean, looking to the future, how are your new facilities at Alderley Park going to be used?
So we're looking to provide a world-class process R&D service to develop drug substance processes for all phases of development for our customers, as well as supplying those initial quantities of starting materials, intermediates, and drug substance for early development studies. So it predominantly lab-based, a lot of process R&D being done in the lab, a lot of chemistry being done in the lab, and also scale up and delivery of up to 1 to 2 kilos of material for our clients. So there's very much a strong scientific delivery from the team in Alderley. I think it's also true to say that the Alderley team are not just a small UK outpost in the SCI organisation. They're a fundamental part of our process R&D team. And they also spend a good percentage of their time interacting very closely with the teams out in Hyderabad, building not only a world-class process R&D service, but also an integrated global team is really important to us because it allows our customers and clients that initially are attracted to what we can offer from the Alderley team to then, as their projects mature and develop, to access cost-effective manufacturing in our sites in India. So the team are very much focused on delivering high-quality science in their own laboratory facilities, but also interfacing very closely with colleagues out in Hyderabad, whether they be colleagues in the R&D space or colleagues in manufacturing as we transfer scaled up processes out to India.
Well, it sounds good, and we certainly wish you well for the future. But for now, Dean, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks, Dominic. Great to speak to you.
Next up on this episode of the podcast is Alderley Park's Dr. Kath Mackay. But first, Kath, for any listeners who maybe aren't completely familiar with Alderley Park, could you perhaps give us a brief introduction to the site?
Absolutely. Alderley Park is part of Bruntwood SciTech's network of innovation districts and campuses. It's the largest single-site life science campus in the UK, located in Cheshire, and it's home to over 200 life science and technology businesses. They're working on a wide variety of different tools, technologies, and therapies to address many of the health and care challenges of our time, including COVID. The site employs over 2,000 scientists and business professionals working in life sciences, and the types of things they're working on range from drug discovery through to AI and digital, through to medtech, contract development and manufacturing. We are home to research institutions such as the Medicines Discovery Catapult, Cancer Research UK's Manchester Institute, and also at the start of 2020, we became home to one of the government's lighthouse laboratories. They are the national diagnostic testing centres that have been set up in response to COVID-19.
So it's certainly a very busy time for the park in terms of the work you're doing. If we look at the importance of people to the life sciences sector, why do you think university connections in particular are vital for the life sciences, but also for a cluster like Alderley Park?
They're important at a variety of different levels, actually. I mean, many of our companies are collaborating with universities, and they are working on research and innovation programs together. I think from a talent and skills point of view, our collaborations with regional universities are absolutely critical to growing and scaling the businesses on site. So I said earlier, we've got over 2,000 people working on the site, and many of those organisations on site are actively recruiting. So many of those new scientists come to us from the universities that we have locally. We've got around 140,000 life science graduates coming out of 8 universities within an hour's drive of Alderley Park. So we're in absolutely prime position to match our new graduates with many of the different companies that we have on site. So having those relationships are mutually beneficial for our companies and the universities in terms of matching talent and skills with roles and opportunities that we have on site. Many of our companies at the moment are on ambitious pathways and growth trajectories and need large volumes of graduate scientists into their businesses at this time. So our relationships with universities are absolutely fundamental to our companies growing and scaling. I think graduates are probably the most obvious entry point, but actually there are many people that join companies at Alderley Park who are more experienced professionally. So I think that the barriers between academia and businesses are blurring. And what I mean by that is, I think, once upon a time, if you started out in an academic career, you were, I suppose, limited in a way, and you had to stay in a university or academic environment. And the same in business. I think there was, I suppose, almost a distrust actually of employing people who'd worked as scientists and commercial roles in business. And I think, I'm happy to see that those boundaries are really blurring. And in many cases, we are seeing scientists come and join companies from very different backgrounds, including university and academic careers.
So, as you say, many of your companies are already working with universities, but how about Alderley Park? What's the site doing to inspire the next generation of scientists?
We think it's really important for our scientists to be seen. So we offer kind of platforms for our scientists to get their message out there and inspire the next generation of scientists and leaders. So we do this by, we have a science seminar program where we invite scientists from the Alderley Park community to talk about their work. We used to do this in our own conference centre on site, but actually COVID has given us the opportunity to bring that to a digital format and reach a much wider audience. So we are very keen to promote the scientific work of our companies and the people. And as I said, using our science seminar programme, that's one way of doing it. We like to produce case studies on many of our companies and the people who work in those companies. And we're really kind of proud to tell the stories of many of the successful companies and people on site. We try to put forward scientists and executives from many different backgrounds to ensure that there's a diverse range of people and voices that are heard. I think personally it's really important to showcase people from a diverse group of backgrounds and champion underrepresented groups. I feel personally, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So it's really important for us to provide that platform for many different types of professionals and scientists that we have on site. I think in terms of inspiring the next generation of scientists, the university connections also come into to play. We've previously had careers days where we have worked with local universities to physically bring them on our site, introduce them to companies and scientists so they can learn about careers in life sciences. So at the end of 2019, we worked with the University of Manchester very closely and had a series of visits with their pharmacy departments and biological science departments where they came to Alderley Park, met scientific leaders and also real life bench scientists to learn about different types of careers. I think it's really important to show the scientists the future, the different career pathways they could have, and could reinforce how important it is to have a good solid life science degree and what that can open up for the future. It can open up careers in academic science, it can open up R&D careers working in a business. But also, I think some of the organisations that we have at Alderley Park who are recruiting might be recruiting for people with life science degrees on the legal side. Working in intellectual property, for example, is another avenue. So I think it's really important to be able to offer these opportunities to young professionals and future graduate scientists working closely with our businesses.
When it comes to attracting new life sciences companies to the northwest of England, where Alderley Park, of course, is located, why is access to skills so important, do you think?
I think if a company is thinking about a new place, a new headquarters, or a new place to put down roots, they need a guarantee really that if they join Alderley Park, they're going to be able to grow their company and recruit people. So I'd say actually it's the top thing we're asked when a new company comes to site. Once they've seen the facilities and they've seen the great environment, they want to know where are they going to get their people from. So those university connections and connections with other campuses, other employers are vital really in providing that reassurance that if a company joins Alderley Park, they will be successful and they'll be able to grow their business through the recruitment of people. In my experience, I've spoken heavily in this interview about universities and graduates. In my experience, that talent is needed at every level. So businesses need to understand that they can recruit new graduates. So being in an area where we've got the largest life science pool of graduates and talent outside of the Golden Triangle is very advantageous for us. But companies also need to know that they can recruit vice presidents, site heads, and executives at a very senior level. So having a network of recruiters that we work with and other professionals is very advantageous. And we've got companies coming to Alderley Park who they're coming for the very first time, and they're actually recruiting talent from the Golden Triangle and South and those people are choosing to relocate in the Northwest because it's such a strong offer.
And finally, for this episode of the podcast, if we look to the future, you mentioned, of course, that Alderley Park already has over 200 companies located at the site across a fascinating mix of life sciences disciplines, from digital to medtech to contract development to AI. But looking to the future, Kath, what's next, do you think, for Alderley Park?
I think that that's a very interesting question, actually. So we opened up our new technology hub at the start of 2020. It's called Glasshouse, and it's an absolutely brilliant place to work. Despite everything that's happened with COVID, and despite only launching that at the start of the year, we have 28 companies who've chosen to join us in Glasshouse, and those companies employ over 400 people. So we have a tech hub on site sitting alongside many of our traditional life science companies. And I actually think what's going to be interesting as we go into 2021 is the blurring of life science and technology. Artificial intelligence, 5G are real growth areas for us. I think the interfaces between tech and life sciences are what kind of fascinates me about the future. And I think we'll see a lot of blurring of those boundaries as many of the life science companies tend to be, I suppose, further influenced by what's happening in the tech and digital sector.
Well, it'll certainly be fascinating to watch as that unfolds over the coming months and into the 2021. But for now, Kath, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you.
So we're going to finish this episode of the podcast by hearing from Steve Joins from Joins and Hunt.
Thank you very much, Dominic. Thank you.
So before we hear your take on current trends in UK life sciences recruitment, perhaps you could give us a quick introduction to Joins and Hunt.
Yeah, sure. So look, I started this business just over 2.5 years ago, around sort of April 2018, which is a business kind of born out of some frustrations I had with the recruitment market. Not necessarily the fault of recruiters or clients or candidates or whichever way you want to point it, but actually more than the industry is on the whole, not even just for life sciences actually. However, recruitment businesses can be seen as a necessary evil sometimes, rather than perhaps a sort of valued and trusted business partner or somebody you can develop a working relationship with. And actually, my frustration was that I thought it could be done better. There could be a more collaborative way of working with everybody, all parties that are involved, whether it be somebody looking for an opportunity or whether it be a client looking for a solution to a staffing challenge. And that's the way I would think about it, a staffing challenge, because as much as we'd like to say that, recruitment's all the same, in some ways we're finding a person for a vacancy, actually it can be more difficult than that, and often a different solution is required than just literally placing a CV on somebody's desk. A lot of my frustrations were sort of born out of wanting to work in a more trusting relationship with the people we work in. So ultimately I started this business to attempt to do that, not necessarily to recreate the wheel, but to try and do a better job of it. That's the way that I was thinking, and maybe to try and put some of my own values into play.
So turning to the recruitment trends that you're tracking in UK life sciences, what sort of things are you seeing at the moment?
Okay, so one of the things that I would say this year, and actually maybe for the last few years, is a demand for a high level R&D type candidate across the market. So there's a big market at the moment within, for example, cell and gene therapy. That's a really interesting sector. There's a lot of demand for people that have perhaps quite maybe PhD level candidates with experience in like sort of viral vector design, things like that. So sort of quite complex roles, which there's one of the things I've found is that the candidates with this kind of skill set are they're coming from probably more of an academic setting than than historically. To me, one of the things we've seen a lot of is quite a lot of demand for people with PhDs, postdocs in very, very, very specific areas. And I use cell and gene therapy as an example because it is something that's massive in the UK right now. Particularly amongst biotech businesses, or smaller biotech businesses. And that's just one example of the kind of skill sets that are needed. And that's actually replicated in other sectors. I use cell and gene therapy as an example, but there are other sectors also that are looking for really specific skills, and actually, ironically, also skills that are not just in perhaps somebody with a PhD and a postdoc, then who's also got some great experience in industry. So one of the things is it's quite a specific skill set, and that has actually led to the market becoming very, very candidate driven. What I mean by that is, at the moment, if you've got a certain skill set, you can be very desirable to a number of companies, which is great. Obviously, we talk about perhaps how it looks right now. Obviously, with COVID-19 this year, it has been different. The movement of candidates is really tricky. So, getting people to interviews in a safe way. Sometimes, some companies are much more open to things like Zoom or Teams calls or any Skype, things like that are much more, open to do that kind of thing. But of course, then you've also got social distancing at work to take into account, in labs, everything. So that's played a real part. And actually, for the year, that's also kind of made difference to the kind of companies that are looking. If you look at companies that are right now, so for example, look at the diagnostic sector. If you're involved in something like, developing or manufacturing lateral flow diagnostics right now, you're busy, and there's movement in that respect. So it has been an interesting time, an interesting year. One of the things I guess, I started all the way back in 2007, which sort of seemed a long time ago right now. But the market since then has changed massively. Probably a bit less big pharma and a lot more biotech. And so, as I said, what's happened is the roles have truly become based around the candidate rather than what the client needs, and there's a lot more competition for good quality candidates in the market, I would say.
And if we look at maybe some of the skills that are in demand, I mean, you mentioned, of course, that you're seeing rising demand for certain academic candidates, but in terms of skills and maybe particular types of positions, what sort of trends are you seeing there? What's most in demand at the moment?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a really interesting question as well, actually. Obviously we talked a little bit about some of the R&D type positions. So again, a lot of the stuff in cell and gene therapy. But it's really interesting, actually. Some of the other things that we've seen that are really high in demand are things, perhaps roles that you don't always think of to be in as high demand, but things like, if you look at quality assurance, regulatory affairs is a big one. Goodness me, that's an area that, it's, particularly if you look at regulatory in something, and I was talking about, diagnostics a moment ago as a sector. If you look at people in regulatory affairs in an industry like diagnostics, where they may have to be familiar with something like FDA 510K or, any of these kind of things. That's there's really high demand. And actually, if I'm honest with you, a low supply of candidates with the right type of experience. That's perhaps at a slightly more senior level. But again, things like quality assurance and people with experience in industry, it's so varied. The life science sector is massive, but some of those type of positions as well. That's the kind of thing, if I'm honest with you, it's difficult. Other things that are high in demand, actually, if we're talking about, particularly where you get biotech hubs, so as we're based at Alderley Park, well, there's quite a few of the companies over here that, would love a bunch of really good sort of synthetic organic chemists, or some really good experienced bioanalysts with skills like LCMS, which used in the right way. So it is tricky. The sector itself, actually, the whole sector, there's always a massive demand for great candidates in a variety of positions. It's such a difficult one to answer directly, because I'd be much happier man if any of it was much more easy,
Sure. And look, you mentioned, of course, you're based at Alderley Park. How does Alderley Park help when it comes to accessing those kind of in-demand skills?
Well, there's a lot of people here, and the vast majority of scientists. Actually, one of the things we like, we have a few clients we work with over here. One of the things we really like is the fact that we can get a face-to-face meeting with some potential clients, and some clients that we work with who, if I'm honest, it's been invaluable. We're based here all the time, so we have an office over here. So it's good to have that. Of course, it makes us easier for candidates over here who are potentially looking for opportunities to find. We are, as always, we have an office here, so we could be in the community. I think that it's really important to mix and try your hardest to be involved with the kind of people you want to work with. So it has helped a hell of a lot, to be honest. It also, if I'm honest with you, like I said, if I go back to the start of the conversation, one of the things that is, at the heart of the business, I guess, in many ways, was this idea of us trying to be more of a collaborative partner to all candidates and clients that we work with. And actually, I suppose being in amongst people, finding out what their actual issues are, whether it be a candidate looking for an opportunity, which we've seen, or whether it be somebody looking to hire somebody, which we've also seen, it's good to understand what we're doing, not just recruitment in the whole, but as a business, what we're doing right and wrong. We can't hide. We've got a big glass window in front of our office, so we're always there, and it's great to sometimes have that sort of that feedback. Really, again, our number one value is our desire to learn as a business, and actually, for what it's worth, it's really allowed us to learn quite a lot more. Which is one of the reasons it's really good to be over here.
Steve, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.
No, thank you very much for having me. Much appreciated.
You've been listening to the Alderley Park Discovery Podcast. For all episodes and more information, visit alderleypark.co.uk/listen. Please leave us a rating and a review, and subscribe within your podcast app so you know when new episodes are released. Thank you.